Hi to all TIs. So, sorry for the long absence. In this video, I'm going to talk about my letter to the United Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner, because there was a call for submissions on psychological torture and ill treatment, and that was being done by the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman or Degrading Treatment or Punishment, also known as CIDTP. His name is Nils Melzer. I will also just briefly remind people, or inform people for those who don't know, that Dr Katherine Horton from Stop 007 is going to the High Court on the 12th of December, and there is a Facebook event page for people who would like to find out more about that. But she's also putting out videos and other information on her website, so I definitely think everybody should find out about that and should make sure that they are up to date with that case, because I think it's going to be a very important case for TIs. I will also just make a quick point for the ladies involved in terms of the physical damage that this torture can do to a lady and her appearance over time, and for women to just bear that in mind. And finally, I will say a quick tribute to Jack Merritt and Saskia Jones, who were murdered because savages do not have any logical arguments to back up their intentions. So the first topic is the call for submissions on psychological torture and ill treatment, which was part of the United Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner, OHCHR. I will put a link to the website in the video description. Basically, this was an initiative led by the United Nations where they had called for all relevant submissions about psychological torture and ill treatment, and you could be individuals, an agency, a professional, whatever, but we did have an opportunity to make those submissions. Now, when I had first seen this advertised, I had seen the date March 2020. So I put it in my diary that I would be preparing my submission for March 2020. On the 25th of November this year, I saw somebody had posted it on Facebook saying that the deadline for submissions was the 25th of November. So of course, I didn't have very much time to put anything together, but I did, and I am obviously making a video about it now, just as a record to tell you all basically that I have done that. I wrote a 9-page letter. On the website, they had uploaded a questionnaire which they had asked people to fill in, and we were also asked to send the submissions to a particular email address. Again, I will put all that information in the video description. In my letter, I answered most of the questions, and some I didn't bother to answer, because one of the questions was, please identify any international, regional or national law or case law relevant to psychological torture, and I thought, well, somebody else would be able to do that better than me. I mean, you know, there's only a limited amount of laws on this area, so I don't really need to do that. But what I did do is answer a number of other questions. So the first question was, what type of conduct, including acts and or omissions, should the notion of psychological torture comprise? So what I did in my letter is I tried to list as many relevant aspects of sickening, gang stalking, organised stalking, and I did actually inform them about organised stalking. So I will read part of my letter. Dear Sir, Madam, my name is Lucy Barnard. I'm an ordinary member of the public who would like to make a contribution to the call for submissions on psychological torture and ill treatment. In this letter, I respond to the questionnaire and also explain a bit about my circumstances. I have been the victim of a long-term serious crime, which I believe amounts to torture. I was abused systematically by a professional criminal group, partly for racial reasons, but also because there are simply many criminals who form groups to commit deviant and abusive acts. I currently have a website and YouTube channel about my case, so I've sent them the links to my previous website and also my Lucy Targeted Individual YouTube channel, so they've got notice of all the information on my YouTube channel. which is the YouTube channel that you're watching this on. I also told them that I am in the process of making a new site, which I am, and again I put a link to that in the letter, but I won't put that link in the video description just yet because there's nothing on that site yet, so there's just no point looking at it, but I will make a video about that soon. I explained about the sickening. I explained that it is an operation carried out by a network of corrupt individuals working throughout the police, military and intelligence services. But I also explained that the liability doesn't just stop there, it's a lot wider than just the official organisations. I said they used the technique of the sickening, which was established by the Stasi, the East German secret police in the 1970s. Sickening means erosion and describes the process whereby a victim is slowly worn down over time through targeted psychological and physical interventions. I went on to say in my letter that similar forms of this crime take place openly in repressive regimes around the world, although it is usually only used when ruling groups have an interest in suppressing communities or citizens for political or financial gain. Other members of the public have, however, also testified to being targeted in a similar way, merely for abusive reasons. This crime has been given several different names, including organised stalking, gang stalking, covert harassment, targeted individuals, electronic torture, and no-touch torture. I explained, as I say in my letter, the sickening is hallmarked by a deliberate intention to avoid detection on the part of the perpetrators, and these documented facts are widely publicised online. So they have now got notice from Lucy Barnard that the sickening, gang stalking, organised stalking is a form of torture. I'm sure many other TIs have also written to them, but this was done through this particular initiative, as I say, through the call for submissions on psychological torture and ill treatment through the United Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner. In terms of the questionnaire, I suggested that psychological torture is where a perpetrator forces a victim to experience something that the victim does not want, which is usually illegal, to the point where the victim suffers degradation of their neurochemical equilibrium. For example, feeling distressed, sad or upset. As examples, I said, doing the exact thing that the victim or an ordinary human being dreads, causing long-lasting permanent damage, harming or destroying things that the victim holds dear, forcing a victim to witness crimes such as murder, torture or harm to loved ones or other people or animals or indeed the environment, harming or destroying a victim's possessions, resources, social infrastructure or capacity, doing things to a victim's detriment that are impossible for the victim to resolve, preventing a victim from solving their own or other important problems, preventing a victim from extracting themselves from the unpleasant situation, for example, literally kidnapping us because we're trapped, forcing a victim to endure hardship, forcing a state of illness, instability on the victim, forcing a victim to live in a state that is of a lower quality than the state they tried to achieve, forcing a victim to live in a state of poverty, failure, crisis or misery, preventing a victim from ensuring their desired quality of life, taking the victim's life over in some way so that the victim loses control to their detriment, affecting the otherwise normal human processes of the victim, for example, interfering with their career or family development, creating a state of uncertainty for the victim with regard to their health or safety, or the health or safety of other persons, animals or things. And I said that the frequency, severity and longevity of the abuse are aggravating factors. I did tell them that I have been a victim of long-term, daily, intentional sleep deprivation, which has been causing slow and continuous health degradation. I have also suffered verbal insults and humiliation, which I believe amounts to ritual torture. And I also discussed the issue of remote neural monitoring, because they were asking about legitimate methods of non-coercive interviewing. And I was saying, well, why don't they just use remote neural monitoring on these suspects now? Because if you can read what's in someone's brain, why would you need to waterboard them, for example? Then the questionnaire asked, please provide examples for the development, trends and prevalence of psychological torture in specific contexts or jurisdictions. So I said, in terms of my situation, there is currently an unrecognised form of psychological torture that has emanated from the practices of the Stasi in the 1970s. While stalking is a crime already well within public awareness, covert harassment is only now making a modest appearance in public discourse. Covert harassment is the corrupt and unauthorised use of military-grade technologies to carry out illegal harassment / destruction of citizens. Targets may be whistleblowers, political dissidents, or those who have crossed people in power, but they are also very often simply innocent civilians. There are many people across the United Kingdom and worldwide who are now coming forward on social media saying they are a victim of this crime. There have also been a number of ex-law enforcement personnel and celebrities who have corroborated the claims, and international conferences and protests have been held by victims. Much of this information is currently available on my YouTube channel. Given the malicious nature of this problem, there has also been a great deal of misinformation spread deliberately by the perpetrators, although the advanced technologies that people are speaking of are already well documented and can be found through online searches. I said I have been put under illegal surveillance, remote neural monitoring, and have experienced the use of long-range advanced technologies that cause a variety of unnatural physical consequences, artificial states of alertness, physical sensations including painful sensations, sickness, hunger, and anxiety. This is not an exhaustive list, because I have in fact been writing my full list of crimes, and I have been assisted with that through the affidavit that was drafted by Dr Katherine Horton, and I have come up with 200 at least separate crimes that I have been subjected to. I also said in my letter that the crime of covert harassment is carried out by people who are otherwise in official positions of responsibility and have access to high-level resources. The criminals are aware that victims are attempting to seek protection and justice and have established techniques to protect their criminal interests, such as intercepting and suppressing information, making threats, and using sickening techniques / technology to unduly influence legitimate parties to an investigation. Accountability in a collegiate environment is challenging, in particular given the wealth and resources the criminals possess, and it may be that full accountability of all the guilty parties will not be possible. However, systems of governance and the rule of law exist to protect vulnerable citizens from criminality, and there must be some form of restraint of these actions and protection for civilians in accordance with existing law. I also said that there was an investigation into MK Ultra in the 1970s under the Church Committee, which successfully dealt with the problem for a while, although its roots were never fully dug up. Oh, I can just see I put an apostrophe there. And the problem has resurfaced again in modern times. Victims affected by the modern crime of covert harassment require a similar investigation / inquiry into the crime, and given the advances in technology, it is possible that the military services / intelligence services / technology manufacturers will require a new type of global regulation. It should not be possible for wealthy individuals to siphon off large, untaxed sums of money only to pour it into sophisticated antisocial technologies and criminal networks. There will come a day when they finally take over the whole world with criminality. I went on to say, in response to the question about best practice and recommendations, the questionnaire asked, considering the particular characteristics of the context in which patterns of psychological torture are prevalent, please identify any best practice or recommendation with a view to preventing and redressing such abuse. So I said, many authorities have so far shirked responsibility for covert harassment torture on the basis that victims are merely talking nonsense. These superficial conclusions could only stand in a climate of ignorance about the existence and nature of this crime, as well as one of corruption throughout official state authorities. It is essential for victims like me to have this crime publicised so our stories can be taken seriously and duly addressed by the authorities. The mechanics of modern covert harassment torture are simply a rehash of previous crimes that have been well documented in history, including sickening by the Stasi and MK Ultra and COINTELPRO by the FBI, all of which were illegal activities by official personnel who were abusing the powers and resources entrusted to them. Finally, I end my letter by saying covert harassment torture includes the overriding of a victim's physical being by advanced, long-range, no-touch technologies. It is essential for victims like me to receive shielding and protection from these technologies. Although there currently exist online guides as to shielding materials and guides that explain how these technologies work, some of this information is misinformation and the materials are also expensive. Victims need to know how these technologies are working and what they can do to stop them. This information could only come from the military complex itself, since the military are the ones who have such advanced technologies in their possession. It is also arguable that victims will need a safe house built by the authorities for their physical protection in terms of adequate shielding. I also mentioned in my letter that I will be seeking financial compensation for everything I have lost in life. So I am telling you about this letter that I wrote just as a way of ensuring that they can't ignore my letter. So the second thing I will talk about in this video is the court case that is coming up, that is being run by Dr Katherine Horton. Her channel is called Stop 007. I can put a link to her channel and website again in the video description, but just to let everybody know that is happening now. There is an event group on Facebook. You should join that event if you are a TI. I believe that court case is happening now on the 12th of December. That is definitely something that everybody should be well aware of and finding out all the information of. And as I say, I will put links to that in my video description, but just to be aware of that. Another thing that I wanted to say is a quick message for all the female TIs. What I have noticed is that years and years of being beaten up and sleep deprivation is actually causing very, very serious lasting damage. Now, I'm watching the video prepared by Dr Katherine Horton, and she's so young and fresh-faced, so she's being gunned with all this machinery and she's soldiering on. But I just want to say that after years and years of sleep deprivation, I have realised that they have turned me into somebody else, somebody that I shouldn't have been. I look completely different than I did 3 years ago. And that was because I have been massively, massively beaten up for many, many years. Now, it's just a call to all women who listen to this. I mean, obviously men as well, because men care about their appearance, but it's particularly difficult for women, because women, what things are like with appearance and women and stuff, So I'm just basically reminding you that if you are being targeted as a woman, it's really important to make sure you get your sleep, to make sure that you detox, because you'll turn around after years and years and you'll see that they've caused damage that cannot be repaired. So do take care, ladies, about your physical health. My final point is just about the London Bridge stabbing. Both Jack Merritt and Saskia Jones went to Cambridge University like I had done, and every murder is bad, but I just feel that this is so sickening. They have clearly used that quote-unquote terror event to further their own agenda, as they do with all these revolting terror events. And these two young people were really bright, confident, nice people, and it's just hit a little bit closer to home this time. So I'm just giving a last tribute from me to those two people who have had their entire lives stolen because of pure savagery. God bless those people. May they rest in peace, and may they not die in vain. Okay, everyone, so I will be back in touch as soon as I can with some more information. Wishing all the best to all.